blame me when I say this is a stupid country, when 60% of the adults in it think the Noah's Ark story is literally true. Which is why I'm already sick of seeing the ads for this floating piece of giraffe crap.
Isaac, you know that's a biblical name?
Yes, sir.
God said to Abraham, give me your son, show me you were willing to sacrifice the one thing most precious to you, and Abraham was willing. You know what's always impressed me about that story? It isn't Abraham's sacrifice, it's Isaac's. Now, I don't know what kind of God would ask that of someone, but it doesn't change anything for me. Isaac is still the hero of this story. Look around you. Look at the world. What do you see? War, poverty, a planet on the brink of collapse. I would argue that God has abandoned us. He didn't keep his end of the bargain, Isaac, so now it's down to you and me to put this right. And this time, Isaac, we can.
And you've said before, Morgan, that you're a man of God. When you did this, and so many of these questions were posed.
When did I say I was a man of God?
You're not?
No.
Please, God.
Where's his choice?
Well, that's why it's so important to spread the gospel, try and save people.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I just find this kind of fundamentalism incredible. I mean, all of you, totally convinced you know exactly who God is and exactly how he wants to be worshipped. And all without a lick of evidence he even exists. No wonder there's so many holy wars. Without evidence, how else would you win this argument except by killing each other?
Our fathers were models for God. If our fathers bailed, what does that tell you about God? Listen to me. You have to consider the possibility that God does not like you, never wanted you. In all probability, he hates you. This is not the worst thing that can happen.
It isn't.
We don't need him.
We don't agree.
Damnation, redemption. We are God's unwanted children. So be it.
They say students were taking part in a real-life fight club inside a school in Connecticut.
New tonight, parents concerned about a possible fight club involving a local student.
Police are investigating a so-called fight club after violent videos were posted on the internet. The videos show Mandurah High School students in fights watched by dozens of teenagers. Andrew Nelson reports.
A bare-knuckle bout in front of a crowd of cheering teenagers.
So if your kid's watching a movie and tells you, don't worry, it's PG-13, well, you might want to check it out for yourself. You might want to see something like this.
Get everything on the plane.
Oh yeah, that's a PG-13 movie. Live Free or Die Hard, released in 2007. Here's another one, PG-13. Oh yeah, a lot of bang bang there. That's Terminator Salvation, released in 2009. So in case you hadn't noticed, there is a lot more violence now in PG-13 movies. Well, how much more? A new study is out, and it might surprise you. It found that in PG-13 movies, gun violence since 1985 has tripled. Beginning in 2009, PG-13 movies became every bit as violent as R-rated movies. And in 2012, PG-13 movies contained even more violence than movies rated R.
If you are just joining us, two young men apparently dressed in long black trench coats opened fire about an hour and a half ago at a high school just outside of Denver in Littleton, Colorado. At least
Good day, everyone. I'm Kristen Dahlgren in New York, and we are coming on the air at this hour with news of a school shooting in South Florida. This took place in Parkland, Florida.
Good morning. We have breaking news at this hour. Right now, a Maryland high school on lockdown after yet another school shooting.
Good morning, everyone. We're coming on the air with breaking news. A school shooting with reports of multiple fatalities, this time in Santa Fe, Texas.
Two teenage gunmen turned another American school into a terrible, terrible scene.
In the chaos of the latest theater shootings, a sadly common theme. Some people heard the shots, heard the screams, and thought nothing
Police in
of it.
Colorado are studying the Batman movies and comic books to learn more about the mind of the killer in Aurora. And as we also said, police departments around this country are sending extra security to guard theaters showing that movie tonight.
Since the inception of Hollywood, there has been a driving force directing public perception using film. The power of imagination and visual images is a real influential tool that has the capacity to transform culture. Within every imagination lies worldviews, ideologies, and in Hollywood, more than often, nihilistic philosophies are portrayed to the public. Many people have underestimated the power of imagination and are failing to protect themselves from the war raging around us for the minds of mankind. Before civilization had barely gotten established, God had to destroy the world in Noah's day because of people's vain imaginations.
And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, for it repenteth me that I have made them.
Scripture does not underestimate man's imagination. The book of Proverbs tells us there are 6 things that the Lord hates, and one of those is a heart that devises wicked imaginations. Even occultists do not deny that the imagination is where the magician begins his work. Occultist writer Colin Wilson writes, to practice magic, both the imagination and the will must be called into action. They are co-equal in the work. It is man's wicked imagination that must be cast at the foot of the cross and subject to God's will to receive eternal life. Most Christians do not truly understand the biblical principle that as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. The Bible makes it very clear that visual imagery has the potential to change a person's thoughts and his beliefs. Someone subjected to certain imagery for long periods of time can be molded into something completely different. The Apostle Paul understood this as well when he said, by beholding the Lord, we can be changed into his image. We are changed by what we look at. Genesis says man was made in the image of God. Not just in the likeness, but our character was the character of Christ. Satan's desire is to destroy God's image in mankind in hopes that God will abandon his people. Satan is using 2 very powerful instruments for accomplishing this objective, and both use the 2 most important senses of man, his hearing and his sight. Through motion picture and music, he is waging a war for the hearts and minds of mankind. The media has become a weapon of mass destruction. There are supernatural forces at work, using people in the occult to purposely destroy Christian values and bring about destructive changes in our culture. This has always been Satan's strategy, but today it is more prevalent than ever, because he has realized his time is almost up. Satan is waging a war for your mind, and he wants to captivate your imagination. We'll examine quotes from actors, directors, writers, and musicians to what extreme this phenomena is occurring, and you will quickly see the darker intentions behind the entertainment industry. The name Hollywood did not come by chance, but actually has an occult meaning. The holly tree was used by Druids and people practicing sorcery, who were well known for being pagan priests and wizards. For example, the character Merlin in the legend of King Arthur was a Druid wizard, and he used a wand made of Hollywood. Hollywood movies are forms of sorcery, and they use psychology and subliminal messages and manifest this through what is called a lesser magic and bewitchment. Films are designed for casting spells, just as magic wands were used for casting spells. A spell can cause a person to be more open to deception or misdirection. Do spells work, you may ask? If you ask a witch, they most certainly do, if you put yourself in a vulnerable position. Opening the door for a spell to work on you can be as easy as watching a movie. The Bible says in Revelation 18, "For by thy sorceries were all nations deceived."
There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer, for all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord.
Throughout the Old Testament, the Bible talks about kings of pagan nations using sorcery or witchcraft. In the Exodus story, Pharaoh called upon his magicians and sorcerers to copy the miracles of God, and they were able to imitate some of God's miracles.
And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, Take thy rod, and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh, and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers. Now the magicians of Egypt they also did in like manner with their enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods.
It's not the magician or witch that can perform the miracles, but they are invoking spirits to do it on their behalf. There's also examples of this in the New Testament. Satan has always worked through the children of disobedience. For some people this sounds so outlandish that it couldn't be true. But the Bible says, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Hollywood is saturated in occult practices. For example, the 1996 film The Craft, about 4 teenage witches, actually invited a real witch to be a consultant during the shooting of the movie. Actress Neve Campbell said, "Something I found intriguing is that we had an actual witch on the set with us, talking with us and coaching us through the scenes." She then goes on to say, all the actresses were sent books on witchcraft. We would be naive to think a movie glamorizing witchcraft to teenagers would not have an effect on our culture. After the movie was released, an occult bookstore owner said in an interview, "I get a lot of teenage girls in here. You can always tell when the Craft movie has been on TV because we get a big influx of girls looking for supplies." Neve Campbell said, "People always ask, what is it like to be looked up to by so many teens? It's a wonderful position to be in. It's wonderful that people look up to me and they can learn things. I acknowledge that I have a huge impact on teenage girls." And she has used that influence irresponsibly to point them towards witchcraft. When Hollywood released the Craft movie in 1996, it was followed by a TV sitcom called Sabrina the Teenage Witch that also tried to make witchcraft seem innocent and appealing to teens. Hollywood has always tried to make the occult seem enticing. Recently on Netflix, they have come out with a reboot of Sabrina the Teenage Witch that has become immensely darker than the original and uses blatant satanic symbolism with blasphemous themes. They too have hired a real witch to be a production designer and consultant. The witchcraft consultant said, "She loaded the set with symbolic details and charm touches. She also said, I put a protection spell on the set and I didn't have to hide it." Then goes on to say she's not the only one practicing witchcraft on the show. A few writers on the show also are practitioners of witchcraft. We have this moment where we can draw people's attention for 60 minutes, and they're going to watch and absorb what we give them. She's right. People will absorb what they see on the screen, and recent studies reveal people practicing witchcraft has increased dramatically in the US, 143% each year since the 1990s. So much that Wicca is now the fastest growing religion in America, growing faster than Christians and Muslims. Hollywood's flood of occult movies and TV shows has changed American culture forever. Hollywood would like you to think there are good and bad witches, but the Bible says all witchcraft is evil. Anyone who is a practitioner will not inherit the kingdom of God. This is why Satan tries to entice the youth with these ideas. The Apostle Paul says,
Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revellings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I've also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God.
In witchcraft, they call upon demons by means of demonic symbols and rituals. This goes all the way back to the Tower of Babel. When God confounded the language of the people, they then started making symbols to associate with certain gods or occult rituals. The occult symbols became a language in themselves for communication and for invoking spirits. Just like spells are organized wording and chanting, a symbol can also invoke a spirit used for enchantment. A symbol can say something complex while being simple in of itself. When a person is aware of these techniques, you'll start to notice the symbols in movies, television, and also very much used by the music industry. Some movies are more blatant with the symbols than others. They can put these symbols throughout a movie, and a person watching may never notice the symbol, but it can enter the person's subconscious, and that symbol can bring about memories and images that the mind has associated with that symbol. The most well-known occult symbol in the media is the Eye of Horus. Countless musicians, actors, and directors have been documented covering one eye or using the symbolism some way or another in their projects. Considering all the facts, the repeated occurrence of the one-eye symbol simply cannot be the result of coincidence. Indeed, there is a clear effort to have this sign displayed. With these symbols in movies and music videos, the occultist who put them there is placing them there for a reason, either to show allegiance to the occult or for communicating to other occultists there are hidden meanings in the project, and for the purpose of casting spells. Another reason occultists use the symbols is for success, to invoke spirits, hoping the spirits will make the film or music popular among the masses. The Greeks are the ones who perfected the arts of acting, music, and poetry. They built the first theaters of the ancient world. During this time, they sought guidance or inspiration from the gods. One of these gods was Dionysus, the god of wine and theater. The Greek philosophers Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle wrote about what they called muses that would take possession of the artist to impress them with different ideas and abilities. Socrates said, "Good poets use no art at all, but they are inspired and possessed. These are not in their right minds when they make their beautiful songs, but they are then like Corybants, out of their wit and dancing about. As soon as the poets rely upon their Corybantic harmony and rhythm, they become frantic and possessed. The poet cannot make poetry until he becomes inspired, when he goes out of his senses and no mind is left in him, not by art, but by divine inspiration. The poets are nothing but the gods' interpreters, possessed each one by whatever god it may be." Plato also wrote about possession being a key aspect to the arts. He said the third type of possession and madness is possession by muses. But if a man comes to the door of poetry quite untouched by the madness of the muses, believing that technique alone will make him a good poet, he and his sane compositions never reach perfection. They are instead utterly eclipsed by the performances of the possessed man. The Greek philosophers understood the arts they were witnessing was coming from a more powerful spiritual source. They identified what they referred to as different types of madness or possession. The inspiration could come in different forms, such as dreams, thoughts, or some artists said they heard actual voices giving them directions. The Greeks developed different rituals to invoke the spirits. As peculiar as this might sound, we have many artists today that are saying something similar. The occult in Hollywood and entertainers in the music industry are purposely tapping into these demonic forces, using some of the same methods to gain inspiration. Archaeologists and historians tell us during the Dionysus era that demonic possession in various ways plays a major role. These forms of possession thrived in ancient Greece, lingered on during the Middle Ages, and made their appearances in many forms during the Renaissance and the Age of Enlightenment, and are still with us today as bold as ever. The popular occultist and 33rd degree Mason Aleister Crowley wrote about how to summon these spirits in various ways and encourage people to do so in his writings. Although Crowley died in 1947, his books and teachings became very popular in the early 60s. He is labeled the most influential Satanist of the 20th and 21st century and is called the father of Satanism. Crowley absolutely hated Christianity, and he wrote in his books that his mission in life was to destroy the faith. He said, and I quote, "That religion they call Christianity, the devil they honor they call God. It is their God and their religion that I hate and will destroy," end quote. Crowley exalted the name of Lucifer and tried to belittle God in his writings. Crowley's father died when he was 11 and left him a vast fortune. He used it to travel the world, join secret societies, and learn about the occult. He studied yoga, Buddhism, Hinduism, and black magic. In Italy, Mussolini had him deported for practicing human sacrifices. Crowley practiced witchcraft and believed in child sacrificing to obtain power from Satan. Crowley also practiced sex magic rituals with both genders and unfortunately used and abused children in these rituals trying to invoke spirits. Crowley worshipped the symbol of Baphomet and the god Pan. These symbols are very popular in music and film today. Crowley taught that the new age was coming, where Christianity would be extinguished from the world and his philosophies would reign supreme. It's also called the Age of Aquarius. This became very popular in the 60s and many songs were written about it. It's actually quite shocking how many famous people read his work, including actors, musicians, even Harvard professors like Timothy Leary. Also political officials who are in secret societies and many more have been exposed and deceived by these satanic teachings. Most people have never heard of Aleister Crowley, but they have been exposed to his teachings through film and music. During the 60s, many bands started promoting Crowley, and this has changed American culture in a very negative way. Crowley's disciples taught sex, drugs, and Eastern mysticism. Crowley encouraged drug use to obtain a higher consciousness. Crowley wrote a book called the Book of the Law, using a method known as automatic writing, which means he was in a trance-like state while a demon dictated to him what to write. The whole book came from demonic forces, and Crowley wrote, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." This is Satan's core principles, to do whatever your heart desires and not to obey God's law. You will hear this repeated in different ways throughout the film and music industry. For the rest of this video, I would like to examine the beginning of the rock and roll era and its ties to the occult and the spirits behind the movement. Crowley also said in his writings, "If one follows my black magic, I can enable him to be a genius in music." Many artists participate in Crowley's black magic for the purpose of success. His goal was to target the youth, and he said, "Use music and an army of youth to bring in the new age." Crowley believed he could target the youth and use music to change culture, and wanted to get rid of Christianity in Western society. One of the most popular bands in the world, who most would be shocked to find out were followers of Crowley, was the Beatles, who seduced millions of fans into drugs and alcohol and encouraged their followers to seek false religions like Eastern mysticism. It's hard to overestimate the impact the Beatles had on the world.
What's a woman's opinion of the Beatles? A young woman's opinion, that is.
I think they're sharp. Just gorgeous. He's gorgeous. He's got a beautiful nose. He's got a beautiful nose. Ringo has a sexy nose.
We were told as soon as we got here last night by the police, don't look out of the windows and don't wave. And if we do that, you know, then we get the police chief coming up and saying, "Well, we're finished, boys." And he goes away and he won't look after us, you know, so we can't do anything.
We came here at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 to see them, and all they do is push your father away. and then they don't even let you say them.
It was February 1964. The Beatles arrived in the United States, and their televised performance on The Ed Sullivan Show was viewed by approximately 73 million people. It was after this the Beatles started promoting Hindu religions and Eastern mystic gurus to American teens. There was an explosion of New Age spirituality, and the Beatles encouraged an altered state of consciousness with LSD and meditations, teaching the youth they could obtain a godlike awareness by chanting mantras of Hindu demon names. This devastating false religious deception can still be seen in America today.
On a mission to bring his transcendental meditation technique to the West, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi first met the Beatles in Wales in 1967. The Beatles weren't the only celebrities who wanted to uncover the spiritual secrets of transcendental meditation. The Guru's list of students also included Jane Fonda, Shirley MacLaine, the Rolling Stones, the Beach Boys, Deepak Chopra, and Mia Farrow.
John Lennon was very open about the spiritual forces behind his songwriting when he said, and I quote, "But my joy is when you're like possessed, like a medium, you know? I'll be sitting around and it will come in the middle of the night. So I'm lying around and this thing comes out as a whole piece, you know? Words and music. And I think, well, you know, can I say I wrote it? I don't know who wrote it. I'm just sitting here and the whole song comes out. So you're like driven and you find yourself over on a piano or guitar and you put it down because it's been given to you or whatever it is that you tune into." Then Lennon makes this striking observation. "When the real music comes to me, it has nothing to do with me because I'm just a channel. The only joy for me is for it to be given to me and I transcribe it like a medium." Lennon is describing how spirits give him entire songs that he did not come up with. He's just a vessel the spirits are using to get the message of rebellion out to the youth. You can see the Beatles' sick, twisted influences on the cover of their Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club album. It is covered with a collage of people known as the Magic Crowd. The Beatles said these were all the people they looked up to and who influenced their music. In the top left-hand corner of the photo is a picture of Aleister Crowley, surrounded by a slew of Eastern mystic gurus. There's also a picture of Karl Marx, the father of communism. Another occultist writer, William S. Burroughs, appears, who said he became demon-possessed when he shot his wife in the face. Also making an appearance is actress Jane Mansfield, who is a high priestess for Anton LaVey's Church of Satan. John Lennon summed up the Beatles' ideas of revolution when he quoted Aleister Crowley and said the whole Beatles' ideology was, "Do what thou wilt." The Beatles brought Crowley's message to the masses, which was destroy Christianity while exalting sexual perversion, drugs, magic, and Satanism, and the whole world gravitated to their message. John Lennon couldn't have been any clearer when he was asked about the Beatles' success. He said, "I sold my soul to the devil." Lennon also expressed his true feelings about Christianity when he said to a reporter, "Christianity will go. It will vanish and shrink. I needn't argue about that. I know I'm right, and I'll be proven right. We're more popular than Jesus now. I don't know which will go first, rock and roll or Christianity." Lennon also described frightening experiences which sound like classical demonic possession to the Beatles' official biographer Hunter Davies, when he said, "If I'm on my own for 3 days doing nothing, I almost leave myself completely. I can see my hands and realize they're moving, but it's a robot that's doing it. It's frightening, really." He went on to say, "I felt like a hollow temple, filled with many spirits, each one passing through me, each inhabiting me for a little time, and then leaving to be replaced by another spirit." What you must ask yourself is when you open your mind up to listening to the Beatles' music, who or what are you really allowing into your subconscious? Yoko Ono said in interviews, her and Lennon were heavily involved in witchcraft, and they made a pact with Lucifer. In Albert Goldman's book, The Lives of John Lennon, he quoted Yoko Ono saying, "Finally, it was time to consummate all these spells by making a living sacrifice and signing a pact with the devil. For Lena was not a white witch, she was the real thing, a practitioner of black magic. There was no knowing what she planned to do to seal the bond with Lucifer. All she would say was that a witch's moon was nigh, and they had to make ready for the sacrifice. Then Lena said, 'We've got to make a sacrifice with the blood of an innocent, to the one who has the power,'" end quote. After the Beatles paved the way for the hippie counterculture drug movement, rock and roll continued becoming darker and bewitching the youth into a life of rebellion. In 1969, another band came on the scene by the name of Black Sabbath, with frontman Ozzy Osbourne, who was also a follower of Aleister Crowley. The bassist Butler for the band said, "I was putting upside-down crosses on my wall and pictures of Satan all over. I painted my apartment black. I was getting really involved in it, and all these horrible things started happening to me." Then he said, "There was a weekly magazine called Man, Myth, and Magic that I started reading, which was all about Satan. That and books by Aleister Crowley. What makes this band so unusual is Black Sabbath said they received the name of their band from a spiritual being that appeared one night to Butler at the foot of his bed, and they attributed all the material for their first 3 albums from what they called the 5th member of Black Sabbath."
At the time I was seriously into cult stuff and black magic and all that kind of thing. I had this little apartment, which I'd painted black and had all these upside down crosses all around the place. Pictures of Satan everywhere. And Ozzy brought this book around for me, and it was like this really old 15th century like old book. And it was all written in Latin. It was all about black magic. It had all these like drawings of Satan and everything in it. And I just had a really weird feeling about it. And that same night, I woke up in the middle of this horrible nightmare, and I just saw this like black shape at the bottom of my bed, just like staring at me. Just like a black, malevolent thing, with just a horrible feeling of it. And I just totally freaked out.
We've always, within the band, said there is a 5th member, a mystical member, yeah. We've always said there's something looking over us.
And the only way that I can describe that, probably in its best, the best way for me is that when we were playing our first songs together, and especially our first the first 3 albums, for instance, we would literally show up in a room, and it was almost as if the songs were already written. That's why I like to call Black Sabbath a phenomenon rather than a band. Although it is a rock and roll band, there's a phenomena involved there where that stuff just comes from somewhere, and it just so happened that we happened to be the ones that it came to.
Ozzy Osbourne made a profound statement about himself, expressing his concerns about a spirit that was using him when he said, and I quote, "I don't know if I'm a medium for some outside source. Whatever it is, frankly, I hope it's not what I think it is, Satan."
There was a time not so long ago when every Southern California teenager shared one thing in common, their love for a singing group that not only captured their ears, but their lifestyle and their fantasies as well. They were the Beach Boys, and as Judy Licht reports, they still are the Beach Boys, and thanks to WNEW Radio, that surf and sound filled Central Park today.
Of course, bands like Black Sabbath have obviously taken a darker path, but even bands people would assume are clean-cut and harmless like the Beach Boys have admitted receiving music and lyrics from what could be no other but demonic forces. Rolling Stones magazine had this to say about Brian Wilson, the musical genius, songwriter, and singer for the Beach Boys. Brian Wilson hears voices. They talk to him, they frighten him, distract him, confuse him. The voices are calling. His eyes rolled toward the ceiling. They've gone blank. His brow is furrowed with thick worry lines. He is silent, gone. He looks up, jerks his head back and forth for a few seconds as if physically shaking away the voices. Brian Wilson also said in an interview, "We were doing witchcraft and trying to make witchcraft music," end quote. Warner Brothers Records president Larry Warnaker claims to have encountered at least 5 different entities that use Brian Wilson's body as their home. He says, and I quote, "There's a lot of different people there. I've met 5 different people that use Brian," end quote. It's apparent that Brian Wilson received many of the Beach Boys' hit songs from the spirits that were using him.
So do you still, you used to hear voices?
Yeah. Auditory hallucinations, you mean?
Yeah.
I've been hearing them for 50 years. Ever since I took psychedelic drugs.
What do they say?
Oh, very many derogatory things. Very many. Threatening thoughts, life-threatening thoughts, and,
Do you still hear them?
Yeah.
Really? So what do you do now when you hear them?
I say, please stop talking to me. Please stop talking to me. They won't stop.
Brian Wilson became increasingly more paranoid about the voices he heard and the effects that it was having on him. He began heavily sedating himself with drugs and alcohol to quiet the voices. Doctors told him he was having auditory hallucinations because of the drugs that he took, but it was much more than that. Brian Wilson made the mistake of dabbling in witchcraft and Eastern mysticism while taking LSD, which opened his mind up to demonic spirits. He said he received his best music during this time, but it was not worth it. The Beach Boys promoted Eastern mystic religions to their young fans and encouraged them to turn away from traditional Christianity.
Good evening. It really was the biggest crowd ever assembled for a single performance in one place in the entire history of the world. It was tonight, and it was in Tampa. The name of the group, Led Zeppelin. They've been around for years, popular with the acid rock crowd, big on album sales. Tonight they broke the world record set by the Beatles, and Channel 13's John Jones watched it happen.
During the 1960s, Western culture went through drastic changes because of the musical revolution. Morality took a nosedive and it never recovered. The hippie counterculture was a movement that changed America forever. Another influential band of the late 60s and early 70s who helped spread the teachings of Satanist Aleister Crowley was Led Zeppelin. Lead guitarist of Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, said, "I feel that Crowley is a misunderstood genius of the 20th century. Because his whole thing was liberation of the person, of the entity, and that restrictions would foul you up. A lot of points he made can be seen to manifest themselves down the line. His thing was total liberation and really getting down to what part you played." Then Page states Crowley's philosophy, "Do what thou wilt," when he said, "What you want to do, just do it." Page also said, "You cannot ignore evil if you study the supernatural as I do. I have many books on the subject and I've attended a number of seances, and I want to go on studying it." Jimmy Page admitted getting musical inspiration from dark spiritual forces when he did his seances, and these spirits used him to promote witchcraft in his music. Jimmy Page admitted, "Crowley was like an eye to the world and to the forthcoming situation. My studies have been quite intensive. I've employed his system in my own day-to-day life. And that is the way big names are made these days, not via the press." Page was stating the way bands get famous was through practicing Crowley's occult magic rituals, and it would appear that he was correct. Satan gave all these bands money and fame in exchange for promoting witchcraft and selling their souls for rock and roll. Although Led Zeppelin became a household name, the band suffered over the years because of their experiences with these demonic forces, and they admitted the band seemed to have been cursed by a slew of mishaps that followed them throughout their careers. When Page and Plant was asked about the writing of their most popular song, Stairway to Heaven, they said the words just started coming out, that they were nothing more than musical mediums being used. He said the following about how they received the lyrics to the song. "I was just sitting there with Pagey in front of the fire at Headley Grange," Plant recalled. "Pagey had written these chords and he played them for me. I was holding a pencil and paper, and for some reason I was in a very bad mood. Then all of a sudden my hand was writing out the words. There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold, and she's buying a stairway to heaven. I just sat there and I looked at the words and I almost leapt out of my seat." Page and Plant were describing what is known as automatic writing. This is when a person is dictating a message that was given to them by demonic spirits. He also said, "When we first got back together, it was so immediately apparent that the two of us were just channeling the music. That's what we had always done, and it was so apparent that it was there. It was almost effortless." When commenting on the production of the album with Stairway to Heaven on it, Page made the following statement in Guitar World magazine: "If something really magical is coming through, then you follow it. We try to take advantage of everything that was being offered to us." Jimmy Page had a serious obsession with Crowley, and in 1970 purchased a home that had previously been owned by Aleister Crowley that was used for magic rituals and human sacrifices. Page said, "My house used to belong to Aleister Crowley. I knew that when I moved in. Magic is very important if people can go through it. I think Crowley is completely relevant today. We're still seeking for truth. The search goes on." Stephen Davis said how Page spent his time at Crowley's house when he said, Jimmy Page spent his days in his suite with the shades drawn and candles lit. He spent his days and nights wide awake, holding his guitar, waiting for some spirit to come through it. Led Zeppelin's music had effects on the youth that are still not fully understood. Satan used this band to spellbound audiences for decades to come.
The Jimi Hendrix experience is over. The acid rock musician died today in a London hospital, apparently from an overdose of drugs.
Guitarist, singer, and songwriter Jimi Hendrix was another explosive artist of the late 60s who opened himself up to being used by demonic forces to initiate the youth further down the path of destruction during the hippie counterculture movement. Jimmy claimed to be a voodoo child and was quoted saying, "Things like witchcraft, which is a form of exploration and imagination, have been banned by the establishment and called evil. It's because these people are frightened to find out the full power of the mind," end quote. Alan Douglas, the executive curator of Hendrix's estate, admitted Jimi Hendrix was possessed by demonic spirits, as you can hear him say in this rare interview.
Now, one of the biggest things about Jimmy was what he believed, and he believed that he was possessed by some spirit, and I got to believe it myself, and that's what we had to deal with all the time. And he was very humble about discussing it with people because he didn't want people to feel like he was being pretentious and so on, but he really believed it, and he was wrestling with it constantly.
Jimmy's living girlfriend, Faye Pridgeon, also spoke about demonic spirits that tormented and inhabited Hendrix, that Jimmy often told her that he wanted to drive the demonic spirits out of him, as you can hear her say in this interview.
He used to always talk about some devil or something was in him, you know, and he didn't have any control over it. He didn't know what made him act the way he acted and what made him say the things he said, and songs and different things like that just come out of him, you know. But at first I used to think it was a cop-out when he had really done me in, right? And he'd say, "I don't know what come over me, you know, I really can't understand it." And, you know, he used to just, you know, grab his hair or something, or pull his hand, or stand there or cry or something. Oh Lord, it was so sad when he would cry. Maybe he was the first man, or maybe the only man that I've ever seen cry, you know, but it just killed me when he cried, because he felt like, it seems like to me he was so tormented and just torn apart, and like he really was obsessed, you know, with something really evil, you know. And he said, you know, like, you're from Georgia, you know, he said, I should know how, you know, people drive demons out. He actually thought about, you know, if we ever go, because I used to talk about my grandmother and all her weird stuff, you know, and he used to talk about us going down there and having some root lady or somebody see if she could drive this demon out of him.
Jimi Hendrix was another artist who allowed himself to be used by demonic forces that channeled their music through him to initiate the West deeper into the drug revolution. Hendrix understood his music had a bewitching, hypnotizing power over people when he admitted, "I can explain everything better through music. You hypnotize people, and when you get the people at their weakest point, you can preach into their subconscious what you want to say. That's why the name Electric Church flashes in and out." Hendrix encouraged the use of hallucinogenic drugs like LSD, which opens the mind up to demonic possession. Jimmy was tormented by the spirits using him, and at age 27 ate a handful of sleeping pills, trying to quiet the harassing voices that he heard at night. Another rock legend and follower of Aleister Crowley was David Bowie, who also received his success by allowing spirits to channel music through him. Bowie admitted, "My overriding interest was in Kabbalah and Crowleyism, the whole dark, rather fearsome netherworld of the wrong side of the brain." Bowie said it perfectly when he stated, "Rock has always been the devil's music. You can't convince me that it isn't." Bowie believed rock music was the vehicle Satan was using to usher in Crowley's occult teachings. Bowie said, "And I feel that we're only heralding something even darker than ourselves. I believe that rock and roll is dangerous. It could well bring about the very evil feeling in the West. That's where I see it heading, bringing about the dark era."
Singing "Time on my Side," the Rolling Stones.
Around the same time the Beatles rose to fame, the infamous band the Rolling Stones showed their occult ties and released the album Satanic Majesties. What few people realized was the Rolling Stones Satanic Majesties album and the Beatles Sgt. Pepper album was released in conjunction with each other to promote the new age that Crowley wrote about that they believed was coming on the earth. Both the Rolling Stones and the Beatles promoted Aleister Crowley and his occult rituals. On the cover of the Rolling Stones Satanic Majesties album, you see Mick Jagger dressed as a wizard, showing his interest in Crowley's magic. The album cover also shows the alignment of planets representing Crowley's belief in the new satanic age that was to come. Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones said, and I quote, "I believe we're moving toward a new age in ideas and events. Astrologically, we are at the end of the age called the Pisces Age, at the beginning of which people like Christ were born. We're soon to begin the age of Aquarius, in which events as important as those at the beginning of Pisces are likely to occur. There is a young revolution in thought and manner about to take place," end quote. And Brian Wilson was right. The rock bands that were coming out during this time changed music and culture forever. They were responsible for the decline of morals in the West. Satan's war for the minds of the younger generations was a success. The Rolling Stones album Satanic Majesties was the first rock band to openly praise Satan on the cover. Another album the Rolling Stones released was called Goat's Head Soup. The original cover featured a picture of a goat's head. The goat and ram are greatly revered in Satanism and witchcraft. The Rolling Stones' most popular song, entitled Sympathy for the Devil, is the official anthem of Anton LaVey's Church of Satan, and Jagger stated that Anton LaVey helped inspire their music. In the song, Lucifer speaks in the first person and asks sympathy for all those who meet him. The song praises Pontius Pilate for making sure that Jesus Christ was crucified. You can see in the lyrics that Satan was speaking through Jagger and using him as a medium. It says, "Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I've been around for a long, long year, stole many a man's soul and faith, and I was around when Jesus Christ had his moment of doubt and pain, made sure that Pilate washed his hands and sealed his fate. Pleased to meet you. I hope you guess my name. But what's puzzling you is the nature of my game." He goes on to say, "Just as every cop is a criminal and all the sinners saints, as heads is tails, just call me Lucifer, 'cause I'm in need of some restraint. So if you meet me, have some courtesy, have some sympathy and some taste. Use all your well-learned politeness, or I will lay your soul to waste." Sympathy for the Devil was controversial when it was first released because it blasphemes the name of Jesus Christ and glorifies Satan, but is now played in grocery stores while we shop, and nobody even thinks anything of it. The very name of their successful 1994 album, Voodoo Lounge, praises black magic in the title. Mick Jagger has admitted in dabbling in magic and the occult and actively encourages others to do the same. He said it's something everybody ought to explore. There are possibilities. In the late 60s, another band came on the scene by the name of The Doors. Jim Morrison actually named the band from a mystical reference used by English writer Aldous Huxley. The Doors were just that, symbolic of spiritual doors to another world, and he encouraged his fans to break on through to the other side into the demonic realm. Jim Morrison viewed himself as a spiritual shaman whose role it was to be a mediator for the youth of the 60s to the spirit world. Countless multitudes were deceived by Morrison to dabble in the occult and seek out these demonic spirits. Satan picked out Jim at a very early age and groomed him to help shape the movement Crowley started in the 60s. Jim Morrison actually admitted becoming possessed at a very early age. He said the spirits crowded his very fragile eggshell mind. In one of Morrison's interviews, he talks about the spirits leaping into him.
But I do think that at that moment, the souls or the ghosts of those dead Indians, maybe one or two of them, were were just running around, freaking out, and just leaped into my soul. And I was like a sponge, ready to just sit there and absorb it.
Even the Doors producer, Paul Rothchild, talked about Jim Morrison being possessed. He said, "This spirit entered Jim's body. That was the pivotal event of his entire life. He always viewed himself as a shaman, having mystical powers. It was this power that drove him and turned him into a seer." On the Doors album cover 13, we see Jim and the band with a picture under Jim of none other than occultist Aleister Crowley. Morrison promoted the teachings of Crowley, "Do with thy will," and said there are no rules, that he was all about rebellion. Morrison admitted that they were just mediums for the music. When asked, he said, "We are not making it, it's making itself." The picture here, you see Jim holding a lamb using satanic symbolism. Morrison said he had received visions when he left UCLA's film school and was living on Venice Beach in 1965. It was there that Satan channeled his music to Morrison. At the time, Morrison could not sing, but he went through a transformation that summer as Satan groomed him and offered him fame and money to sell his soul. Jim Morrison said this about the spiritual experience that summer. "In that year, there was an intense visitation of energy. I left school and went down to the beach to live. I slept on a roof. I met the spirit of music, an appearance of the devil on Venice Canal running." Then he tells you exactly who he saw. He finishes with, "I saw Satan." The material Satan communicated to Jim Morrison became the Doors' first two albums and would be far more powerful than anything they would make subsequently to that time. Morrison said, "I was living in this abandoned office building, sleeping on the roof. I just started hearing songs. I heard in my head a whole concert situation with a band and singing an audience, a large audience. Those first 5 or 6 songs I wrote, I was just taking notes at a fantastic rock concert that was going on inside my head." Morrison could not be any clearer that the music they made was given to him by demonic spirits. Band member Ray Manzarek said, "On stage, Morrison came alive and was the most exciting and dynamic performer I'd ever seen. He would go through trips on stage. You wouldn't believe the personalities that would come out of him, the intensity that would speak to the audience." He went on to say 15,000 people would just be hushed, stopped, not even breathing. "Man, when I was on stage with the guy, I don't know who was playing the organ. Sure, it was my fingers." Manzarek was saying the same spirit that took control of Jim also channeled through him on his instruments. Manzarek also said, "When the Siberian shaman gets ready to go into his trance, all the villagers get together and shake rattles and blow whistles and play whatever instruments they have to send him off. It was the same way with the Doors. When we played in concert, it was like Jim was an electric shaman, and we were the electric shaman's band, pounding away behind him. It would take him over. You could see every once in a while a twitch. I could hit a chord and make him twitch, and he'd go off again. Sometimes he was just incredible, just amazing, and the audience felt it too." Music has always played a major role in affecting cultures around the world. Rock music actually has its roots in tribal religious ceremonies. For thousands of years, shamans have used the beating of drums and music for channeling spirits. And demonic possession has always played a key aspect in music and art, from which rock and roll is derived from today. Here you can see Jim Morrison doing one of his shaman dances. Shamans use dancing and chanting for invoking spirits. The voodoo priest who would become possessed after dancing displayed similar characteristics as Morrison when he was on stage. Morrison thought of himself as a mystic prophet because of the visions he received from Satan. Although Jim would invoke these spirits on stage, off stage, Morrison was very unhappy and felt tormented by the demons that used him, and admitted he drank to silence the constant voices of demons. The Doors photographer said, "Jim drank to quiet the ceaseless clamor of the demons, ghosts, and spirits begging for release. He drank because there were demons and voices and spirits shouting inside of his head, and he found that one of the ways to quell them was with alcohol." The Doors helped establish the psychedelic era of music and the band created some of the most recognizable songs in rock history. Satan gave them the power, money, and fame, but the Doors' careers only lasted about 5 years, until Jim Morrison, at age 27, was found dead in a bathtub from an apparent drug overdose. He traded an eternity of life for 5 years of fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a big show, a real big shoe, with Elvis Presley headlining tonight. Promise. And during the show, Elvis is going to appear all the way through the show because sometimes people tune in a little late. We've got a great all-star show going along with him, but right now, singing a medley of some of the songs that you enjoyed to the extent of boosting them over the million mark, here is Elvis.
When talking about rock and roll and the influences that have affected American culture, there is one rock artist that stands above all and was given the title the King of Rock, Elvis Presley. He's regarded as one of the most significant icons of the 20th century. Presley was awarded 110 gold, platinum, and multi-platinum albums and singles, the largest presentation of gold and platinum records ever awarded to one artist. His movies grossed over $180 million. He's the object of one of the biggest personality cults in modern history. An estimated 1 million people visited his gravesite at Forest Hill Cemetery during the first few weeks after his death, before it was moved to the grounds of Graceland. More than 20 years after his death, 700,000 people each year toured through his Graceland mansion in Memphis, Tennessee, and each year the candlelight vigil held to commemorate his death is attended by thousands of dedicated fans, many of whom openly weep during the occasion. There are 500 Elvis fan clubs still active around the world today. Elvis had a stage presence and effect on his fans like no other artist. Elvis stated that he had no control over the way his body responded to music and described the transformation that took place on stage as if he was being possessed by some surge of electricity. Describing what happened to him during rock performances, Elvis said similar things that other artists have stated, that a power or force comes over them like spirit possession. He said it's like a surge of electricity going through you. It's almost like making love, but it's even stronger than that. Elvis observed that his rock and roll music had an effect on him and his fans. Steve Dunleavy, author of Elvis What Happened, said, Elvis Presley was straddling the microphone in the most suggestive of manners, his groin gyrating inches from the upright stand, and he was shaking in convulsive movements, as if possessed by an alien spirit. When he sang loudly, he commanded his worshippers. Later in his life, Elvis would admit the strange power that he wielded over the audience was a power that he received from the spirit world. Elvis said when he was younger, he was being guided by a voice that he believed was his dead brother. Elvis was born a twin, but his brother was a stillbirth. Elvis believed his brother was guiding him and speaking to him. The Bible says the dead know not anything and cannot communicate with the living. Elvis was being deceived by demonic spirits. Elvis said, I always felt an unseen hand behind me. He also said, I heard that same voice and thought it was my brother. That's what I thought. I heard guidance, guiding me all my life. That's why I'm here and why I'm doing this. This didn't just happen. This wasn't mere happenstance. Later in Elvis's career, he met a hairdresser by the name of Larry Gellers. Larry was into New Age spiritualism and occult mysticism. He became Elvis's hairdresser and spiritual advisor until the time of his death. Many of Elvis's fans think he believed in traditional Christianity because he sang gospel songs, but nothing could be further from the truth. Elvis, like so many other New Age spiritualists, believed there are many ways to heaven besides Christ, but Jesus made it very clear there was only one way to heaven, and that was through him.
Jesus saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father, but by me.
Larry Gellers, his spiritual advisor, lived in California and was caught up in the occult teachings sweeping through the United States during the 60s rock era. Elvis was sometimes called the evangelist by those who hung around him, and he called them his disciples, but the message he preached contained strange permutations of Christian dogma. Elvis believed, for example, that Jesus slept with his female followers. According to Elvis's former disciples, whenever he mentioned Jesus, he would just say, "Now Jesus, he was getting it on with Mary Magdalene. It ain't in the Bible, but it's true. She got stoned. Jesus took care of her, and they traveled around a lot together." End quote. Larry Gellers, Elvis's spiritual advisor, said in his book, he didn't think that Jesus was the only begotten Son of God. He thought that all people had Christ in them and had the same potential. Elvis' conception of Jesus Christ differed from the Jesus depicted by modern Christianity. To Elvis's fans, he pretended to be a traditional Christian to protect his image, but in his personal life, he loved reading about the occult and shared their beliefs. Red West, one of Elvis's bodyguards, declared with conviction that Elvis possessed, and I quote, "some kind of special powers, something like psychic powers," he said. "Elvis proved it to me again and again." Elvis told his bodyguards he had psychic abilities and that he could heal people with his touch. Sonny West, another bodyguard, acknowledged Elvis's belief in his capabilities. Although he was dubious about the capabilities themselves, he said Elvis announced that he possessed psychic healing powers and could cure the common cold or other ailments through his simple touch. He also thought he could make leaves move and turn the sprinkler systems on of the Bel Air Country Club on and off through telekinesis. Sonny West, who was considered by Elvis his disciple, also said he genuinely believes that he is a prophet and we were his disciples. He certainly had power over us. He certainly had control over me. I admit it. I mean, he had me going where I was making telephone calls about getting Mike Stone hit. I'm no killer. When Priscilla, Elvis's wife, left him in 1972 for her karate instructor, Mike Stone, Elvis asked one of his disciples, Sonny West, to shoot Mike Stone with a high-powered rifle. According to Sonny, Elvis tried to use his psychic powers to persuade Sonny to go through with the killing. Elvis actually had made plots to kill several people.
Elvis sat down and he said, "Sonny, get down, get down." So I was at the foot of the bed and I got down on my knees. He said, "Come here." And he put his hands out. And I took his hands and he said, look at me, man. And I started looking at him. He was trying to give me suggestion by concentrating on, you got to kill him, Sonny. You got to do it, man. You got to do it. He's breaking up my family. Very low key. And I'm fighting. I said, no, Elvis. He said, Sonny, you can do it. Elvis jumped up, went in and got this assault rifle. I think it was an AK-47 or something. And he came out, or either Thompson machine guns, one of the two, and he came out and put it in my hand. He said, Sonny, go kill Mike Stone.
Elvis was a great fan of the occultist Madame Blavatsky. He was so taken with her book, The Voice of Silence, which contains a supposed translation of ancient occultant incantations, that he sometimes read from it on stage and was inspired by it to name his own gospel group, Voice. Another one of Madame Blavatsky's books, The Secret Doctrine, Blavatsky praises Lucifer and she belittles God. Blavatsky, throughout her writings, disagrees with the Bible and tries to change the character of Jesus into something less important. She claimed to receive many messages from the spirit world or demons. Another of Elvis's favorite books was The Impersonal Life, which explains how to realize a godlike consciousness and promotes mystical occult spirituality. Biographer Albert Goldman says Elvis gave away hundreds of copies of this book over the last 13 years of his life. Priscilla wrote in her book, Elvis and Me, as Elvis' fascination with the occult and metaphysical phenomena intensified, his friend Larry introduced him to Self-Realization Fellowship Center on Mount Washington, where he met Dahlia Mata, the head of the center. Priscilla wrote, she epitomized everything he was striving to be. Priscilla said that Elvis made many trips to the Occultist Meditation Center and that he was fascinated with reaching a higher state of consciousness. She states that he read the Uganda had reached such a high state of consciousness and that his spirit could control his body even after death, end quote. It's hard for some people to accept because of his fame, but Elvis rejected traditional Bible teachings and he was a practicing occultist. and he encouraged other people to do the same. Elvis's stepbrother, who was also part of his security, wrote a book called Conversations with the King, and he said, "For a long time I had a conflict between the traditional faith I'd grown up with and my developing interest in the metaphysical things that Elvis had taught me. Part of my spiritual evolution was finding answers to many unanswered questions I had. Why was I put into Elvis Presley's life? Why was I exposed to his gift of healing and his gift as a mystic? And many more questions." David Stanley, the stepbrother, said in an interview about his book, "Other themes in the Conversations with the King will challenge many readers, particularly Elvis as a mystic, Elvis as a healer. His managers wanted to keep the extent of Elvis's spiritual seeking as private as possible in order not to risk threatening his image." Larry Gellers, Elvis's spiritual guide, said in his book, I Can Dream, in Elvis's mind, his life was being directed divinely by the Brotherhood of Masters and illuminated beings, enlightened entities that have existed since time immemorial, and he truly felt he was chosen to be here now as a modern-day savior, a Christ. Larry Gellers also said, Elvis claimed that his mission was to use his name and influence to initiate people into the spiritual world, of which he was being used. He claimed that this voice was using him as a channel to reach millions of people through the universal language of music. Elvis also had bitter feelings towards the teachings of the Bible, and he believed in Crowley's New Age. Elvis said, "Someday, in the near future, we'll see how those so-called ministers of God react as they see their worn-out ways and the whole old age start crumbling. They'll all get theirs. I can't wait till the New Age comes." The book, Elvis, The Last 24 Hours, says, when Elvis was considering a marriage to Ginger Alden prior to his death, Elvis wanted the ceremony to be held in a pyramid-shaped arena in order to focus the spiritual energies upon him and Ginger. Colonel Tom Parker managed Elvis Presley's career from 1955 to 1977, overseeing almost every aspect of the star's life. He made sure Elvis's occult studies did not make it out to the public. He worked very hard to keep Elvis's Christian image to his fans. Elvis seemed to have had everything this world has to offer, but he was still not happy. At the peak of Elvis's career in the late 50s, he visited one of his childhood church pastors, and the pastor quoted what Elvis said, "Pastor, I'm the most miserable young man you've ever seen. I've got all the money I'll ever need to spend. I've got millions of fans. I've got friends, but I'm doing what you taught me not to do, and I'm not doing the things you taught me to do." Elvis lived a life of fornication, adultery, and drugs, just like so many other rock stars, and it never brought true happiness to his life. Satan can give you all the kingdoms of this world, but without God in your life, there is never peace of mind. The higher state of consciousness that Elvis sought in the occult world would not have brought him satisfaction. Only our Creator can fill the void in man's heart. Jesus Christ is the true desire of the ages. When Elvis was asked to come on the Ed Sullivan Show in the early 1950s, the CBS executives decreed that Elvis could only be filmed from the waist up because of his sexual suggestive dancing was inappropriate. But eventually that wall was broken down. Rock music fueled the sexual revolution and the hippie drug movement of the 60s. Both of these were part of Crowley's plans to seduce the youth of America into drugs and sex and to break down the Christian culture that dominated the United States. Rock music encouraged rebellion in the youth and promoted occult teachings. Everything Crowley desired for his new age was coming true. The series we are doing on media is not for the purpose of promoting censorship. We believe these artists should have free speech, but the intent is to educate people who do desire to truly serve God to think about what they are putting into their minds and where it is really coming from. The Bible says, "Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them." There was much more information I could not fit in this video, but join me for the next episode as we continue investigating what is really going on behind the music and film industry. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe or follow us on Facebook. Thank you, and God bless.
And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God.